he probably needs to shut up, because this is a great country and we get one day a year to celebrate it, waving our flags. He should be out there himself with one of these on, waving the flag and celebrating everything that's great.
Lee Anderson has had enough. On St. George's Day, no less, he unleashed an explosive on-air rant accusing Keir Starmer of hijacking England's National Day to score political points, and even told him to shut up. This wasn't a policy debate, this was an all-out culture war, and it blew up live on GB News. Lee Anderson versus Keir Starmer, heritage versus politics, flags, riots, and a verbal smackdown in front of the nation. Smash that subscribe button if you're tired of the spin and want the raw truth, straight from the front lines of Britain's fiercest debates. It started when Keir Starmer made comments tying St. George's Day to the need to reclaim the flag from those using it to divide, referring to the Southport riots and other protests. But for many, Starmer's comments landed like a gut punch. Lee Anderson wasn't having any of it. He
politics around the flag.
I think today of all days, Martin, what Sir Keir Starmer should be doing is celebrating English heritage, our history, and our culture, instead of playing politics. He's
pointed to Starmer's silence during Islamist-led protests and flagged what he saw as a double standard.
Are on the streets out there waving their flags during these riots. You know, we've seen it on Whitehall before, we've seen it on Parliament Square, we've seen some of these people, promoting terror, Hamas terror, and the Islamists out waving flags. He keeps relatively quiet when that happens. When the true English people come out to celebrate, like I say, their history, their heritage, their culture.
Boom. In Anderson's eyes, Starmer didn't just miss the mark, he disrespected the one day England celebrates its identity. Chris Hope stepped in to soften the blow, arguing,
But that's what he was doing, wasn't he? I mean, that's what Sir Keir Starmer is talking about. Eccles cakes, he's talking about English fizzy wine, he's talking about football. He was talking about the war.
But Anderson wasn't buying it.
I think it was clunky to mention Southport, the riots, a very difficult time in our national story.
It was country chop. It was just bad taste. It was poor form.
Nigel Nelson, also on the panel, offered the classic liberal framing.
Flag, and you won't like this, Lee Anderson, as a problem, as a divisive political tool.
But Lee came right back.
It's a thing to be proud of.
Look, we don't get to choose who waves a flag in the middle of the street, Chopper. We live in a free country. Yeah, and there are some idiots waving the flag, we know that. But why is it today, of all days, is out attacking people for waving the flag? And like Martin says, it doesn't attack other countries, the home nations, when they're out waving their flags. I mean, look at when we have St. Patrick's Day. Actually, not part of the home nation, but it's a big Irish community in this country. They go out waving the flags and having a great time, and so they should. But he never attacks them, does he?
No, he wouldn't.
He wasn't just defending a flag, he was calling out a pattern, a selective silence.
Never attacks them, does he?
No, he wouldn't talk about the problems of Irish nationalism or indeed any other types of...
Let's call it what it is. Every year, St. George's Day gets less celebration and more criticism, especially from the political left. While other countries wave their flags with pride, England's own National Day has become a battleground. Anderson laid it out.
They are embarrassed about our history, our heritage, and our culture, and every single opportunity they have to have a little dig about it, and I say to them...
He brought up Emily Thornberry's infamous flag snobbery scandal, and...
I'll tell you what it is, we've seen it a few years back, we've seen with Emily Thornberry, when she was sneering at people, with this flag of St. George on their council house during the World Cup.
Anderson's frustration reflects a wider one across the country. Millions feeling their identity mocked and their traditions silenced. When St. George's Day becomes a platform to lecture the English public about their own flag, it stops being celebration and starts being political censorship. As Lee thundered,
They have to have a little dig about it, and I say to them, shut up, we are a great country, we are a gift to the world. They should be celebrating everything we've done.
Just when you thought Lee Anderson had said it all, he shifts from Keir Starmer to the entire political establishment. A discussion breaks out about a possible pact between the Reform Party and the Tories, with Robert Genrich floated as a potential ally. Anderson doesn't just shoot it down, he blows it up.
With Robert Genrich?
Well, not on a personal level, no, I wouldn't. But let me say this.
Then he gets cheeky.
Rob's a colleague, I get on with Rob really, really well, but and he looks great, by the way. He's been on the Ozempic, I believe. He's been on the slimming pens.
No.
He's done something.
No, that's wrong. You know what he's doing? He's boxing.
He's boxing.
He hasn't done Ozempic for about 6 weeks, about 2 years ago, but he's boxing every week.
But the Ozempic, it must have some long-term side effects, because actually now he's talking like a proper conservative.
Boom. And if that wasn't enough, he adds,
that's going to last. Perhaps he should inject the rest of the Conservative Party with his Ozempic. But look, we're not making...
Pure political napalm. Anderson Anderson's message was clear: reform is rising, and they're not interested in backroom deals or being swallowed by what he calls the wet liberal wing of the Conservative Party.
I'm Chopper. You know, we're ahead in the polls, consistently ahead in the polls. You know, we're making massive gains. We're getting, our membership is 225,000. It is. It's the Tories that are for it. They're running scared, and we saw in the.
As the conversation circles around potential alliances and stopping Labour, Anderson drops his final truth bomb.
But the
if you
Tories
end
aren't
up,
right wing.
reform will disappear.
No,
You'll get swallowed up by.
He exposes the weakness at the heart of the Conservative Party.
Moment, I would say probably a third of those are Conservative. I would say another third are probably Liberal, wet Liberal. Another third, quite frankly, haven't got a clue.
Even when teased about being a former Corbyn lover, Anderson holds the line.
We haven't got to do any deals with anybody, mate. The only deal we've got to do is with the great British public.
The Reform Party isn't here to merge. It's here to take over. And on a day meant to celebrate English pride, Anderson used his platform to declare a political revolution and torch anyone standing in the way. He ends with a final nod to the spirit of the day.
In the studio today on St George's Day. Happy St George's Day. And same to you, gentlemen. Happy St George's Day.
Happy St. George's Day.
We've disagreed today, but hey, we're getting.
If you're tired of tiptoeing around flags, history, and who gets to be proud, this is your front line. Smash that subscribe button. This channel is your place for truth bombs, patriotism, and the political takedowns they'll never show you on BBC. Happy St. George's Day, and God save the real England.